ES Audio.
The Evening Standard Rugby Podcast with Lawrence Dallaglio, supported by Fuller's London Pride, official beer of Premiership Rugby. Support with pride.
Hello, I'm Lawrence Dallaglio. Welcome to the Evening Standard Rugby Podcast, supported by Fuller's London Pride. As ever, I'm joined by, well, the real presenter really, and my co-host, the lovely Sarra Elgan. Sarra, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Law. Good, thanks. We've another jam-packed episode of rugby news and views for you this week. Also with us, of course, is Steve Cording from the Evening Standard. Hey, Steve.
Hey, Sarra. Hey, Lawrence. How are you both?
Good. And we're delighted to welcome our special guest this week. It's Northampton Saints scrum-half Alex Mitchell. Hi, Alex.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me on.
No, delighted to you're on. Although I'm not sure how you and Lol are going to be getting on actually after this weekend's final
game's
minute.
over. Game's over. They took the point. That's the way it works. Well, congratulations.
Okay. Said through gritted teeth. We'll talk about the details of your win, Alex, and we'll also be talking about the ongoing uncertainties of Wasps' financial situations. I know Lawrence wants to say a few words about that, but just on the game, Alex, what was the main feeling in the changing room after that dramatic finish?
It was a weird one. Obviously, it was a bonkers finish. Obviously, Lawrence won't be too happy about that, but it was a weird feeling in the changing room. Obviously, we were happy about the 5 points, but we were quite frustrated with our performance because we thought our performance was way below par. I think the amount of mistakes we left out there and the amount of points we could have scored was quite frustrating. So it was a weird game, but I mean, to be involved with a game with a finish like that is awesome, and it was a class finish.
Yeah, and you got a day off today, I take it. What does a day off for Alex Mitchell look like, apart from blending in with your surroundings? Grey t-shirt, grey backdrop.
I know, it's very plain. No, just chilling today. I've had breakfast with the lads this morning, a bit of a debrief about the game, and then I'll go across to Virgin Active and then just do a bit of admin, maybe play a bit of FIFA with the lads as well. So, pretty chilled.
Nice. Steve, you've got some good news, I hear. Did your football team actually win a game?
We actually won
at the weekend.
We won 4-0. Alex, you know, with my boys under 12s, they've taken a tonking the last 2 weeks, 9-1 and 9-0, and we were a bit worried about the future, but we actually won.
Nice. Turned it around.
Didn't concede a goal. The key is defence, you see. It's all about the defence.
Does that mean you'll keep your job as a manager?
Until next week, probably.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Everyone's happy then. Lawrence Dallaglio, what have you been up to? You've had a busy weekend with BT, but what else have you done?
Well, not a lot, really. I mean, it's just reflecting on the game very quickly. Northampton, just give them massive credit for staying in the match and playing right to the end. I think for any rugby player, if you don't catch your kickoffs, that's generally what happens. You get beaten, don't you, really? And I look back at the game last night. I think the first couple of penalties came from kickoffs that weren't caught, and pretty much a couple of the other Northampton tries came from just not catching a kickoff and not being able to reset after you've scored a points yourself. And I think the lads looked like they were completely out on their feet by the end. So it's a bit of a cruel one. Obviously, off the field, we'll address some questions in a little while.
How was your training session with your son at Bristol?
Oh, yeah, that was, I suppose, a bright spark. Yeah, you have reminded me of that. I went down to Bristol to watch Bristol Chiefs, and then took my son out, who's 21 next week, Enzo, for food, obviously, because he's got...
Sorry, wait, can we stop there? For food? Because,
well,
I know he's a student, but students don't normally eat. Well, not when I was a student.
Beans on toast.
And Lawrence, you were like, I said, good weekend. Oh, yeah, going to train my son and the boys, and we're going to go out for a few beers. Oh, you're going to go out, are you, on Saturday night? Oh, no, we're going to go out for a few beers tonight.
Very, very professional, because I was working on TV, obviously, the next day. But I coached his university side, the Bristol University rugby team. I say I did. I brought Alex King down because he actually knows what he's doing on the training field, and he took the boys, which was fascinating, actually, just to watch a coach who's clearly been working with players, up until a few months ago. And they really enjoyed it, actually. I mean, I obviously did some scrums and lineouts and mauls, which is pretty basic, really, isn't it? It's just, we do all the hard work, and we were watching the backs, and they were kicking, and it all looked very nice. But yeah, that was a nice little moment to do that. I didn't think I'd ever be coaching a team with my son, that's for sure.
Is that something actually that you ever thought of doing before we move on quickly? I thought you've been a pretty good coach. I can see you in that role.
I think it's one of those things that you when you retire from playing, and Alex is a long way away from that, and it's not that sort of decision. But I think the decision for me was that if I got myself involved in coaching, I think I'd probably be even more obsessed than I was as a player, and I'm not sure that's a good thing for me or the people around me. So I wanted to have a bit of a rest from it, and I think since then, you never say never. I mean, you look at some teams and the way that they're playing and the way they're coached, and you do think you probably could add a bit of value. So I'll start with Bristol University and see where it takes me.
Okay, sounds good. Okay.
Sarra, what about you? Come on, what about you? You've been 3 days in a row on TV. You must have had to do anything else.
I know I put in the graph this weekend. Yeah,
she was voted the best female, presenter in rugby on the television. I mean, that's
not strictly true. We'll take it.
We voted that on our WhatsApp group anyway. So
you're all biased, though.
Was the green coat deliberate because you had Brian on yesterday? Was that?
Oh, it wasn't actually. Yeah, Brian was on all weekend with us, wasn't he? Apart from
he was. I think Brian borrowed my son's jacket, didn't he? He was like a little Harrington Bomber jacket. He thought he was 21 again.
Right, enough fashion chat. We're going to get into some deep or depth of analysis of the weekend and results shortly. But let's put some questions to Alex now, Lawrence.
I will do, Alex. Don't be intimidated by any of us. It is wonderful to have you on, and what we try and do is just get a bit of a understanding for our listeners as to your sort of your journey, really, your history. I mean, obviously you joined Saints Academy in 2015, but was rugby always something that you were you watching it as a young kid growing up? Were you inspired to play, or were you looking at other sports and rugby just came along?
I think so. For me, when I was younger, I always played all sports. Quite a sporty family. 2 older brothers, but I mainly looked at football to start off with till I was about 12, 13, loved football, played a bit of rugby on Sundays, and then I think when I was about 12, 13, I had to make a decision, and my dad's a big rugby fan. He was like, look, I'm going to put you down the rugby route. I think it'd be quite tough to make it in the football life nowadays, and then just went from there, and then obviously kept on playing, did quite well, came through the Sale Sharks Academy, and then when I was about 17, 18, I had to make a decision of who I wanted to join. And it was funny because my brother was also a scrum-half at Sale Sharks. I didn't really want to be stuck behind him and try to argue. I'd argue with him anyway. So imagine if we were trying to fight for the same 9 shirt. So I was like, I was
wondering why you moved from Sale to Northampton. Was it? I mean, it's probably, you're absolutely right. Having an older brother, you just want to get out of that, don't you, really? And not be in that shadow type thing.
Exactly. Yeah, everyone said I was in his shadow and I couldn't drive, so he'd have to drive me into work and drive me back, and it would have just been hellish. So I just Northampton obviously offered me a contract, and I thought it was a good decision. Obviously, I've not really looked back since, so pretty happy with that decision.
And listen, we are forever, talking to clubs and directors of rugby. There's obviously been a bit of a shift. You've worked under Chris Boyd, who we all think is just one of the best people in rugby. He's left his mark on Northampton, and obviously then the likes of Phil Dowson, and Sam Vesti and the team there. We try and make a little bit more of it than sometimes there is, but from a player's perspective, it was fascinating watching you guys score your winning try yesterday. The whole coaching group were going bananas, apart from Dowse, who was just sort of, what's the problem? Not even a flicker of emotion. What's changed, do you think, going from Chris Boyd to Phil at the top?
I actually saw that clip. Such a weird clip, isn't it? All the coaches going mad, and Dowson's just pretty cool, calm and collected.
He wasn't feeling well though yesterday, Alex, was he? He told me pre-match.
Right?
He was like, I'm not feeling great.
No, just the changes. Obviously, Boydie was very calm, like very wise lad, and kind of like to keep like a lid on things. But Dowson's very emotional, very good talker. So in that sense, they're actually quite different. That's why I was quite surprised of Dowse not jumping up from his chair when we obviously won. But they're both very similar. They're both very good knowledge of the game, and I think it helps with Vesti underneath them, who's an awesome attack coach, and I think that's why our attack goes so well at times. Yeah. And they bounce off each other a lot of the time. So to have them both has been awesome, I think, for us.
Big news though last week, Dan Biggar leaving you at the end of the season. And my first question is favourite. I actually do love Dan Biggar, not just because he's Welsh. I just think he's great. But what have you kind of learned, I suppose, from playing alongside him?
A lot, really. I mean, like I said before the show, a lot of people think he's just whiny and just doesn't stop chirping, but he's actually a really good lad off the pitch. Always comes for coffees with the lads, and on the pitch, he's just a hell of a leader. Doesn't stop talking. I think for me to have someone like that outside me, it just makes my job so easy. He's always talking. He's always telling me what he wants. Sometimes it gives me a good rollicking if I don't get it right, but sometimes that's what you need, especially when I was younger. So he's been awesome. It's a shame to see him go, but obviously I don't think we can afford him. So he'll be off elsewhere.
Right, sign of the times, that, guys, though, isn't it? Unfortunately.
Exactly.
Unfortunately. Listen, you were living in a house with, I don't know if this is still the case actually, but you were living in a house with George Furbank, weren't you? And did Ribbons over lockdown? You still there? You still living with them now?
No, finally moved out. They said I was with Daddy Dave for way too long. I was meant to be there for 6 months, but ended up being 3 years, and he just looked after me. But yeah, during lockdown, Furbs had a place, but he didn't want to live there by himself, so he came back, and yeah, we did all sorts of things, garden cricket, and had a lot of arguments. TikToks that we get a lot of stick for still, but we had to do it. The media team said we had to do it, so
they said you had to.
We've got a clip of that. We must have a clip of that, haven't we?
Have you seen it? I couldn't. I was watching it and I was like, I can't work out if they're really good dancers or not. I was trying to
just like robots.
I thought it might have been a thing. That was
he didn't persuade you to invest in any facial hair then while you were living together?
No, I can't. It's too crap. So I couldn't try and do that.
Too wispy.
Yeah, exactly.
Alex, listen, we'll move it back onto the rugby. We're talking England. You made your international debut against Tonga. You scored a try, so that's a pretty good way to announce your arrival. Obviously, you didn't go to Australia. It's the scrum-half position, and it's just been, for us viewers, it's kind of it keeps going one way then the other. There's Rafi Quirks in the mix, then yourself. Danny Kerr comes out of old people's home back into the mix as well. And the position just keeps changing. Does the England coach actually talk to each and every one of you and individually and say, look, you're not in at the minute, this is what you need to do to get in? Or how does it work? Because clearly your aspirations have got to be to try and be that late run into the squad and into the World Cup squad, I guess.
I think so, yeah. I think that's everyone's goal. And like I said, Eddie does speak to us all. I think every player's got something to work on or something to get better at. For me, it's that consistency and little things that I can get better. But like you said, the competition is pretty rife at scrum half at the moment. There's so many good players across the board. I think every club has got a very good scrum half. So it's one of them you can't really look too far ahead. You never know what's going to happen with injuries or form or whatnot. So I think for me, it's just putting my head down and doing a job at Northampton, and then England will look after itself.
Yeah, well, you're certainly doing that all right. I mean, I've always wondered as the backs, if you just occasionally take the forwards out and say, listen, lads, I really need a bit of a platform from you. I need you guys to do your thing, because without that, it's hard work, isn't it, to really generate it. But I think we're gonna park the questions for a little while, Sarra, aren't we? And maybe dig into some of the rugby.
Yeah, shall we? Should we start then with Friday night? The first of two West Country derbies, so Exeter Chiefs arrive at Ashton Gate, and they took on Bristol Bears, of course. Now, both teams, they were stinging a little bit from defeats the weekend before. Lawrence, you and I were down there. It was initially a really strong start, wasn't it, from the Bears? But did the game kind of get away from them or turn a little bit with Ellis Genge's yellow card?
I think it was a bit of a reality check for Pat Lam and his team. I think that, they were unbeaten in the first three matches. Admittedly, I think they played Bath, London Irish and Wasps, who, if you've got aspirations of being at the top of the league, are probably teams that you have to think you're going to beat. Disappointed against Newcastle. You can't get away from that. And I don't know whether it was a mixture of the journey or just a bad day. Sometimes you have bad days where you don't turn up as a group collectively and you've got to dust yourself down. But I think this particular performance will hurt, because it's very clear that without Ellis Genge, and he tried everything, sometimes tried a bit too hard, and without Luatua, their captain, they really are struggling in terms of leadership and the group. I thought that, as you said, their best moment came in that first few minutes when they scored their try, and after that, they actually went downhill. And conversely, Exeter went up. And I just think you're looking at two different teams, really. I thought everything Exeter did was powerful, strong, collective. They look like they're getting themselves back to the sort of Chiefs that used to play maybe a couple of seasons ago. They look very, very strong, and I think for them it'll be probably a performance that Ali Heifer will be very proud of, because there's been so many teams. Wasps were an example yesterday. Maybe Northampton have done it on a couple of occasions, where you go out to a really big lead early on in a match, and you think you're done and dusted, and you kind of, the points are in the bag, and then these teams somehow seem to reel you in. And that happened to Exeter twice, against Leicester and against Sarra. Was it Saracens? No, it was Leicester and Harlequins, and they nearly lost the game. And I think the difference was that they really, really imposed themselves in that game, and then they just hit the accelerator. So, yeah, Bristol, worrying times. I think Pat Lamb's got to get back on the training pitch and just get them feeling confident again. Not quite sure what it is.
Yeah, Alex, I was saying there about, in the Premiership at the moment, teams go off to big starts and then other teams catch up with them and beat them at the end. It's a crazy place. It seems to be a crazy place to play at the moment. Do you, as players, feel like it's different to seasons gone by, these opening few weekends?
Yeah, it has been different. I think a big thing as well is the amount of yellow cards, red cards, and HIAs that are actually going on at the moment. I think that swings games a lot of times. It's like you'd be ahead, and obviously a red card, yellow card, and that would change the game. Obviously nowadays, I think it's great looking after people's heads and concussions, but it's changing the game in a way. I think we saw some stat the other day: 25% of games are decided if there's been a yellow or red card for the opposition side. So it's one of the things that nowadays we're doing a lot of game scenario things and training of, we've got a red card and the yellow card in the forwards. What we're gonna do? How we're gonna deal with that? So I think that's one big reasons why games change so much. I mean, look at our game. Umaga getting a red card, and that kind of swings the momentum to our side. So there's a lot of things that clubs have got to get right nowadays, and I think it's good for rugby though as well. It's making it a bit more entertaining.
Alex, can I just ask that question then? On that basis, there's a lot. I mean, apart from the set piece, which I think is always going to be an important part of the game, scrum, line out, restart, is a lot of the training based around sort of quite chaotic situations? Because when you watch the game now, it's about attack, counter attack. It's about turnover ball. There's so much that happens in quite a chaotic situation, and you have to kind of rehearse and practice that in training, don't you?
Exactly. Yeah, we don't just do drills nowadays. We try and make it game scenario. So if they just chuck a ball in, or they sometimes we have a scoreboard on the side of the pitch with 2 minutes left, and it's like 14-10 down. You've got 2 minutes against wind. Try and play your way out of it.
That'd be easy for Saints. It's 4 points down. What about 24 points down?
But it's just one of them things that the game's changing. You've got to adapt and get used to it. And it's one of them that teams are getting better at. And like I said, it's making it more entertaining, isn't it?
What was that stat you gave just now? 25% of games. What did you say? 20?
Yeah, I might be a bit wrong on this, but yeah, 25% of games are decided with a yellow or red card nowadays. So obviously, if a team gets a yellow or red card, it's likely to go to the opposition. So it's things like that are changing.
Lawrence will 100% be nicking that stat for BT this weekend. Okay, let's move on then. Steve, let's turn to Saturday's game. Leicester's defeat at home to Sale, who were like 16-12 down at half-time, I think, and they came back firing on all cylinders, not only taking the game, but what was the final score? 26 points, wasn't it? Denying Leicester any further points in that second half. Like you predicted a Sale win on last week's podcast. Yeah. What did you make of the game?
Can we replay last week's podcast, Lol? I was talking nonsense that Leicester would lose at home. No. So to be fair, I mean, Leicester changes again. I mean, we'll get that team, that starting 15 that we want to see eventually. But we've spoken a lot about attack and excitement in the pod so far from Premiership that we've seen, but I think defence is key and will always be key when you're going to win titles and what have you. And Sale have now conceded the fewest number of points in the Premiership, 78 in 4 games. Gloucester are next, 79, and they've played a game less. So clearly that's going to have a big part to play going forward. But I think they've got all the right ingredients at the moment. Sale, you've got Manu Tuolangi, who's fit, who's charging around, ball carrying, big hits all over the place, looking like he's enjoying the game again. Tom Curry leading from the front. And as we've said, Rafi Kirk coming off the bench here, there, I can't swear, can I? Everywhere, literally on the pitch. I mean, scoring a try, setting up a try, stopping a try. I mean, you can't ask for more than that, really. So I think at the moment, Sale are flying. My one concern, maybe, autumn internationals on the horizon. When players start disappearing, will they be able to keep that momentum going? But no, looking all good at the moment.
Well, what are you making of Leicester? I mean, it's a cliche, isn't it, that it's kind of tougher to defend a title than it is to actually win it. But they are chopping and changing a lot.
They are. Another 5 players introduced, and he was keen to make that very clear. So there's a lot of new people there. I mean, I think there's 2 players that aren't there, which is Elgan, who was their captain and their personality, and George Ford, who will be. I mean, imagine what he's going to bring when he's fit to play. So 2 big losses. But equally, if you look at the teams that have beaten them, it's been Saracens, it's been Sale yesterday, and it's been the Exeter Chiefs with a try in the last minute. And I think all of those 3 sides have got a different identity this year and a different purpose. So I don't think Steve Porthwick will be hitting the panic button just yet. What I would say on Sale, Alex Sanderson has taken a bit of time to assess what's going on there. Having a group of South African players is one thing. Sometimes you can have too many of a good thing. And now he's lost Faf de Klerk. I think suddenly you're seeing a very different Rob de Preer playing at 10. He was outstanding, primarily because he probably gets the ball a little bit more now when he asks for it. And as much as Steve, I agree, defence is such a huge part of the game, as is set piece. They've always had that Sale. Sometimes they've almost been too much too aggressive with their defence, but they seem to have an extra layer to their attack, which allows them to be a little bit more unpredictable. They were a bit predictable, a bit South African, like they just smashed the hell out of you, and they generally did against most sides. But actually, to score 4 tries at Welford Road is quite an achievement, really. So I think there's a little bit more to their attacking game than I think we're discussing, and they're the real deal, no doubt about it. If you win there, you can win anywhere.
Yeah, Alex, you lost them, didn't you? First game of the season. So I take it you don't see this result as a massive surprise, do you?
No, they're obviously a very good outfit. I mean, we call them South African B team. But like Lawrence said, they've changed their game in a way. They used to just try and batter you, look after set piece, kick the ball. But now they're actually evolving their game. They can do both now. They can attack and bully up front. So they're a dangerous side, and like we said, we struggled up there. So yeah, they're going well. But hopefully we can do it when we play them at home.
Right, Steve. Second West Country derby of the weekend came in the form of Bath Gloucester at the Rec, sunny Saturday afternoon. Another defeat for Bath. But Lawrence and Steve and Alex, I guess it was a good second half performance for them. But again, they just leave themselves too much to do in that second 40, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realise this, but Bath have won nearly every second half they've played in. But unfortunately, they just give themselves a massive mountain to climb. I think Van Graham, the coach, has got a bit of a job on his hands. I mean, they might be South Africa Mark III if they carry on playing the way that he wants them to play. I'm not so sure that's their DNA. If I was going in there, yes, you want to shore things up defensively, but you've got to look at the type of players and the type of club you are. They've always wanted to play decent rugby. It says a lot about a team in terms of where they are at the minute when Ollie Lawrence goes in there and he's only had 2 training sessions and he's their best player on the pitch. So admittedly, they've got a lot of injury problems, and I'm not going to slam them because they've got their captain Charlie Ewells is out, Sam Underhill. They've got long-term issues which all clubs have, but I think culturally and in terms of their attitude, they need to step up massively. We've all been in teams that lose, but there's things that we all share in common, and it's your heart and your ability to get off the floor and just work hard. And I think they're being outworked in games, particularly in the beginning of games, and that for me is inexcusable as a rugby player. Doesn't matter what club you belong to. So I think that there are things that will take longer to fix at Bath, but equally there's things that you can fix very, very quickly. And I would only be picking players who actually want to actually get themselves off the floor and actually get back in the game very quickly.
Is defence a cultural thing? Is it I don't know. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Does the culture need to change?
Well, Alex will be able to give us an insight into how they are. But if players are connected off the field and they're spending time together, and they like each other and they're looking after each other in their everyday lives, then that's what you tend to take on the field as well. And in actual fact, if you're really close off the field, then you really look after each other and you really go that extra bit off on the field as well. And that takes time to build, but it needs buy-in from all the players. And Alex was saying, Dan Biggar, he comes and joins the boys. yes, you've got a family work-life balance, but equally, you've got to be prepared to enjoy each other's company on and off the field.
I think everyone's got their defensive systems, haven't they? But obviously, if you're closer off the field, you're willing to work for the player next to you a bit more. And at the end of the day, defense is just energy and work rate. Like, everyone's got different systems and how to do this, but it's how willing you're willing to work and get off the line and hit something. So yeah, so I think that's obviously where Bath may be struggling at the moment. It is kind of a cultural thing. Obviously, if you're willing to play with the boys on that field, you're more likely to get everything out of them. So that's one thing.
Sorry, Alex, how hard is it to keep practicing your defence now, with the directives being that there should be less contact, particularly in training? I mean, is it something that you can work on without tackling?
I think so, yeah. Obviously, training's changed a bit. We do a lot of technical stuff now, so getting in the right positions, especially in the breakdown, we go through the movements but don't actually do the collisions, which is good. But sometimes, obviously, we still do 15 to 30 minutes of contact a week, just because you still need to get that repetition into you. But it is one thing that's changed a bit, and I think it'll probably adapt even more in the next couple of years.
Do you see things changing, Steve, for Bath in the imminent future of the next few weeks?
It's getting there slowly, isn't it? I mean, to go through an entire half and not concede a point, it's got to be a plus. But ultimately, I mean, as Lawrence says, they've got to start winning games and converting these opportunities. And at the moment, it doesn't look like they're going to do it. But I think we're all impressed with Johan van Graan. I think he comes across really well. I think he interviews well. He clearly knows what he wants to do, but he's got to start doing it.
Okay, so Alex, you guys paid a visit, Northampton paid a visit to Wasp at the CVS Arena, and like so many games already this season, as we've spoken about, we witnessed another thrilling ending to the match. You guys were 36-35 down, so point in it, 78 minutes. So at that stage, what's been said? Are you kind of like, is it, okay, lads, like, what do we do? Or have you got a plan what you're going to do? Or do you just play in front of you? What's the crack?
Yeah, I think we're 8 points down. Obviously, your game plan changes a bit. Obviously, we need to play a bit more possession-based rugby. We knew we were going to play from deep. But apart from that, nothing really changes. We were struggling at the breakdown a lot. I mean, Jack Willis was all over our ball. He was unbelievable. So we spoke about the breakdown, obviously look after that department. And we know if we look after the ball and play phases, we'll break them down. And we ended up doing that. I think we were 8 points down with 2 minutes to go. And then obviously managed to get 2 tries in 2 minutes. So finally stuck at the end and got the result.
And the thing is, a win's a win, like Lawrence was saying, isn't it? Like, everything wasn't perfect for you yesterday, but you'll take those points. It kind of felt like you guys almost needed, I know we're only 5 games into the season, so it's almost ridiculous to be saying this, but it felt like you guys needed that at the weekend, because you were starting to fall off the pace a little bit in terms of points. Is that fair? I think so. If we didn't win that game, I think we would have been behind the leading pack, and you always need to be in that top 4, top 6 going through the season. And we don't want to be chasing it, because as soon as you're chasing it, the confidence dips a bit and different things change. And you may want to change game plans because you're losing games, which you should never do. So, one of them things, a massive result for us. I think, obviously breakfast this morning, everyone seemed a bit down still, which is really weird. But it would have been even worse if we actually lost the game. So, massive for the boys, and it'll give us some confidence this week going into next.
I think we need to change the strapline for Sunday's games, don't we? To any given Sunday, one team will win as time expires. It's just been madness, isn't it? Every Sunday.
It's so good. Yeah. And it's like, for me, I was presenting yesterday, and when you kind of start thinking about your questions for post-match, I don't know how many games this season already, I'm like, okay, well, there's no point. That piece of paper's gone with 30 seconds left of the game. So but it's great. It's great to watch. It's great for the fans, obviously. Now, Lawrence, I know you've received some criticism for some of your comments about whether Wasps should also be relegated if they go into administration and that whole situation. Do you want to clarify your thoughts on that?
Yes, I would like to clarify my comments that I made yesterday on TV, and hopefully I put them right later on the Rugby Tonight show. But just for clarity purposes, obviously on Worcester being relegated, I believe that they can appeal relegation should they come out of administration under different ownership. It's all quite hypothetical with Wasps because up until now, they're actually not in administration at the moment. And I don't think it's fair that one club should be relegated and one shouldn't. That's not what I was actually saying. And if people took that as what I was saying, then that's the reason for my clarification. I was saying that we need to understand that there has been a global pandemic over the last 3 years, and that we need to understand that if rugby is truly a family, then families tend to stick together, don't they? So I don't agree with what's happened to Worcester. I think it's a heartbreaking situation. They've been left out there on a limb, and I think rugby needs to have a real good look at itself. The game of professional rugby, in my opinion, is a very small part of the overall game of rugby in this country, including grassroots. Everyone has made huge investments as clubs into that professional end of the game. And I think it's important that the right decisions are made to ensure that the future of the professional end of the game remains intact. So hopefully that clarifies the comments. As I said, I apologise if those comments were taken out of context. It certainly wasn't my case to put that message across.
Yeah, I feel like we could talk about this subject, obviously, for the next half an hour. But okay, so let's move on then to the final game. Well, final game that we're talking about. Played yesterday, same time as Northampton was, of course. But Newcastle Saracens, unfortunately, for Dave Walder's men, they couldn't quite pull off a repeat performance from the weekend before against Bristol. And Saracens took the win, 34 points to the Falcons 14. Steve, Newcastle, I mean, they haven't beaten Saracens since 2009, I think. So it was always going to be a tough one for them, this.
No, it's 21 games now, which is an incredible run. But again, I know I keep going on about defence, but even Joe Shaw mentioned it after the game that was what he was most impressed with by Saracens in their first half performance, was the shutout, was not conceding any points. But another superb display by Saracens, and calling out with Lawrence last week, he picked up on Elliot Daly's form. He had a hand in all 5 tries that they scored yesterday. Superb. The one blocked Mako's red card. He apologised for it, but obviously he's now probably going to get a ban, which I would imagine would be 6 weeks, probably ruling him out of the first 2 autumn internationals. He clearly got that one wrong. You could argue maybe, Lawrence has touched on it already, Ellis Genge maybe should have had the same fate on Friday night. What was it, bicep got him out of it rather than it being a direct head-to-head. But yeah, disappointing that he did that, but clearly he realised that it was the wrong thing to have done, and he apologised straight away.
Okay, so we've done the games. Should we start with the most outstanding player of the weekend? Lawrence, who's yours this week?
Well, I was thinking about Rafi Quirk, but I thought, as I've got Alex Mitchell on here, I didn't think it was appropriate for me to name him as the outstanding.
You really can.
That'd be a bit cruel, even though they did steal the points from us yesterday. So I think for me, there was couple of wingers that played very well for Exeter. In fact, the whole Exeter team played very well. But Ollie Woodburn, I think, for me, has been he's been a great player for a number of years now. Very consistent player. Hasn't obviously taken that step up to international rugby, but they look really fit. They look really hungry, and he epitomises that. I think the way that he scored those 2 tries, for any young winger watching, particularly the first one, I thought it was outstanding. So just that, for that finish alone. We often give wingers a lot of grief, don't we, for not scoring tries that they probably should, because that's their job. They're paid to finish, right? And I think that the way he finished that try, I thought was outstanding. And yeah, he's my outstanding player of the week, Ollie Woodburn.
Okay, Alex, you've been on great form this season. You can't pick yourself this week, though. So who are you going to go for?
I think obviously a few boys were awesome this week. Jack Willis is up there. Obviously, the full 80 minutes I was obviously involved, and he made our breakdown a nightmare. And I thought he was class. Rafi looked really sharp, but from watching the Saracens highlights, I thought Elliot Daly, I thought he was awesome last week. And I think he's just everywhere at the moment, isn't he? So yeah, my outstanding player would be Elliot Daly. Yeah.
Steve?
I'm going to go defence again, unsurprisingly. I thought Ruan Ackerman on Saturday was superb. 22 tackles. Ultimately, he was the one who ended those 25 phases of Bath play right at the end by stealing the ball. I just thought he was superb and absolutely fantastic. And he's my outstanding player of the week.
So I thought of Ruan. I thought he was class Saturday. Jack Willis, then Alex. He just kind of leads by example as well, doesn't he? He seems to like galvanise everyone around him by the way he plays. But I'm just going to go Ollie Lawrence in a losing side in that West Country derby. I just feel like after all the Worcester have been through, to put, a showing in like that on a debut for a new club was good. Yeah, so that's mine for what it's worth, right? Next weekend, sees round 6 of the league. So let's take a look at the fixture list then. We'll be like short and sharp on these gents. Friday night, it's Sale, London Irish. So Steve, who are we going for there?
Sale.
You haven't got to be that sharp. You can give me
that's sharp. No, I think playing at home, London Irish still perennial entertainers, but just can't defend. So yeah, it's got to be Sale.
You had £1 for every time you said defend or defence on the podcast this week.
No, I've made this a defence. It started at the beginning, didn't it? Because we built on defence at under 12s. If you win, if you defend,
are you still banging on about that win?
Still banging on about that win.
Okay. Saturday games. Alex Wasps travelled to Sandy Park to face Exeter. I mean, they looked very good on Friday night. How are you seeing this one going?
I think, Exeter's obviously a really tough place to go. So I've got to put Exeter down for that one, especially after their performance against Bristol.
Lol, West Country battle again at Kingsholm. Gloucester host Bristol.
It's hard, isn't it? Gloucester have had a bit of a fragmented start to the season. They obviously had the Worcester game cancelled, and then they had a bye week early on, so they haven't really got going yet. But they are a good side. They're very, they look formidable. They showed against Sarra. They seem to be a first half team at the minute, and then they're sort of dropping off a little bit second half. But Bristol, my word, they would have had the hairdryer treatment all week in training. And to be honest, that can go one of two ways. You can either overanalyze, overtrain, have long days, and then even more leggy for the next game. If you're trying to put things right, I'm not sure Kingsholm's the place to go and do it. There was 5 away wins last weekend in the Premiership, which is unheard of. But I do see this one going with the home team myself, unless Luatua or Ellis Genge can get back in tandem. I see Gloucester having a little bit too much from.
Northampton, Newcastle, Steve.
Northampton, Alex Mitchell, hat-trick.
Yes.
That one?
No chance.
No, Northampton.
Okay. Alex, tabletop for Sarries. They welcome Bath. I mean, if you were Bath head in there this weekend, what would your mindset be? It's a tough one, right?
Yeah, it is tough. Obviously, we said about their defence, and obviously they can live off their second half performances. So try and galvanise around that and try to put performance in. But obviously that's going to be a tough old way, a place to go. Sorry. So yeah, I'll probably go Sarries for that one.
Okay, lol. Rounding things off then on Sunday, Quins, Leicester. Now you're going to be at the Stoop. Who do you think's coming away from that one?
Well, do you know what? It just made me think that Leicester, when you look at their fixture list, they've had some really tough fixtures. I mean, this is like round 6, isn't it? And they had Exeter away first game. They're now playing Quins away. They played Sale at home. They played Saracens away. So all of those fixtures will reverse at the end of the season. So everyone has to remember, to be honest, when I was playing, all I looked at was the running at the end of the season. What were the last 6 fixtures? Because you'd like to think you're there or thereabouts in the playoffs, and that's where you really start to push the pedal. So I think Leicester will have a hard work against Harlequins. It's very hard to beat Quins at the Stoop at the minute. I think they're in a nice little groove. But, all of those fixtures for Leicester Tigers will reverse. So if they can hang in there, I think they've got a great run in to the end of the season.
Okay, so we're pleased to announce actually that we've got our first live podcast recording of the season following that match. So if you're at the game, be sure to stick around, join the fun later. We've got some great guests and we'll be announcing who those guests are during the week. So keep an eye on social media for those. You don't want to miss it. Okay, so time to put our guests back under the spotlight now. Alex, Lawrence loves this part of the show. So
I do.
Strap yourself in.
I'll let you answer. Nice quick fire. We ask these. It's called Tackled. It's quick fire questions, so that all of our listeners can get to know you a bit better. So, what's your full name?
Alexander Arthur David Mitchell. Far too posh.
That is very posh.
I know. I'm not posh either, so I don't know why I'm saying that.
Did you say Alex Arthur Daly Mitchell? Did you?
No, I wish. No, Arthur David.
What's your favourite takeaway?
Indian.
Who's your celebrity crush?
Kim Kardashian, maybe.
Last film you watched?
The Fighter.
Oh, I like it. And what did you have for breakfast today?
I had a full English. Needed after the game. Yeah, need some energy.
Boy. Nickname?
Just Mitch.
Best advice that you've ever been given?
I've had a few. A weird one, but always have a ball in your hands, regardless.
I like it. Who is the most famous person in your phone book or your phone list?
Eddie Jones, I said that. Don't really know. James Haskell, maybe. I don't know.
In his own head, yes. Who would play you in the film about your life?
Steve Carell, I think.
Good choice. Who's the funniest person you know?
Paul Hill, but not. He's like funny to laugh at. He's not actually funny. He's a weirdo.
That's basically who do you take the mickey out of the most in your team? Are you a dog or cat man?
I used to have a cat growing up, so I like cats, but dog man.
Okay. And your favourite karaoke song? What do they make you sing on the bus?
Well, for my debut, I just sang Country Roads, but my karaoke song probably just Tequila, simple.
Beautiful. Favourite TV show at the moment?
Game of Thrones.
Boy. Which superhero would you most like to be?
Probably Batman. I'd like to be Bruce Wayne. Seems like a cool guy.
Because he's got loads of cash.
He's got loads of cash as well.
Who's the best rugby player in your mind of all time? Who's the guy that you really looked up to growing up as a kid, or you really admire now, or whatever, or then?
I think growing up and throughout the World Cup, the 2015 World Cup, probably Dan Carter. I think he's been awesome.
Yeah, they got him involved in the Women's World Cup now, haven't they, with the New Zealand team, doing a bit of coaching. And for you personally, what's your most memorable rugby moment to date so far?
Obviously England debut was obviously up there in front of my family and 80,000, but the best moment was England 16s, and I scored last couple of minutes and we beat Wales. So yeah, that was probably my best moment. I don't know why, it just sticks deep in my memory.
See, Sarra, it's not just me.
No, clearly it's not just you. I was just about to say that.
Great
These
stuff.
are Laura's favourite moments. Well.
Listen, thank you for sharing those insights. We really appreciate that in the world of Alex Mitchell. Good luck for your match against Newcastle. No pressure. It's just a hat-trick we've predicted. Hopefully, I think I speak on behalf of everyone on this pod, and certainly a lot of England rugby fans out there, that we hope to see you run out in an England shirt in the not too distant future. So thanks for being our guest.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Lawrence. Cheers, guys.
Well, that's all for this episode of the Rugby Podcast, supported by Fuller's London Pride. Our thanks again goes to Alex Mitchell. Thanks, Alex. Great to see you. And to Steve Cording too, of course. And you too, Lawrence.
Well, and thanks to Sarra as well. Don't forget, you can watch the full extended video podcast of today's episode at londonpridebeer.co.uk.
Yeah, make sure, guys, you're following on your favourite podcast platform so that you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.